Welcome to another Care & Co podcast. Today I'm here with Amber Moore from the Learning Disability and Autism Charity. Amber, welcome and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I just wanted to start off by saying a huge well done. I know it was quite a while ago, but you actually won the Fundraiser of the Year with Northamptonshire Health Charity, which is an incredible achievement. So huge well done. Just wanted to start off by saying that. So I've been learning a bit about your work and what you're doing with the Learning Disability and Autism Charity. And what really stood out to me kind of was how personal it was. It doesn't feel like something you've kind of stepped into. It feels like something that really does matter. Where did it all begin?
So it began when my sisters ended up having multiple seizures a bit more often, and she came into the hospital a bit more frequently. And it kind of gave me some perspective into the care and how comfortable staff felt in treating her.
Did you completely understand if you don't want to divulge into this because it is personal, but can you elaborate more on that, more about your sister or the situation?
My sister has learning disabilities and physical disabilities, and when she comes into clinical environments, she doesn't like things like blood tests, so getting them is really hard. It's kind of one of those, I'll let you do it once, and if you don't get it, I'm not doing it again. And I kind of found that staff weren't comfortable in navigating that, or were not knowledgeable enough on how to navigate those situations, which meant that the family would have a lot more input to kind of support getting the blood test. But it was a situation where if they didn't get it that one time, it was refused completely, that it wasn't going to happen.
Course. You've been doing this for quite a few years now, and what have you learned from your experience?
So from doing the charity ball itself, I've learned that it's opened up a really safe space for those within the community. So people with learning disabilities and autism also attend the events. Where they hold the event, it's extremely inclusive, so they'll try and do what they can to make sure members of the community can attend. So things like the sound can be quite overwhelming, so the DJ would be willing to reduce the sound levels to make sure that everyone's comfortable. But I also found that it helps bring in conversations. People are a lot more, over the years, have been a lot more open regarding their experiences, new diagnoses, and like kind of support, and they ask questions if they're unsure on what's going on, where if they feel like maybe they don't know how to navigate something, it's been an opportunity for them to discuss it with people who've been in similar situations and see what they can do to navigate it.
So it's a really nice, safe space. It's like completely adapted for them, the sound, the lighting, and kind of everyone who goes to these events like have all of the knowledge, and you're not judged at all. It's like a completely like welcomed with open arms. Yeah. I think that's
definitely
so important. So I'd love to talk more about the charity itself. For people listening who might have not heard about the charity, what is the Learning Disability and Autism Charity, and what does it do?
So the Learning Disability and Autism Charity event enables money to go into the Northamptonshire Health Charities fundraising team, which are then able to support the Learning Disability and Autism Department get access to the money to be able to create things like care packages, training, and additional support. So things like sensory toys, brochures on how to navigate, supporting those with additional needs on the wards and what they can do to help improve the care within the ward to support those who are struggling and may be impacted by learning disabilities or autism.
I think that's great. Yeah, I feel like everyone needs to know about this charity. What is your role within the charity, and what's your day-to-day?
So I work within Northampton General. I previously worked in Kettering General Hospital as an admin assistant, and I would see the learning disability and autism nurse when they would come on the ward, come and see any patients, and I'd have conversations with them. But also I would see them quite a lot within my sister's care when she came into the hospital. So there'd be a lot of communications and support in how to get her home, advocating as well if there was things that she thought needed to be put in place to support her discharge. It was kind of those basis. My day-to-day, I kind of work from home, so I'm a bit lucky on that part. But I don't now have much of a input ward-wise. It's more training based and working on training videos and things like that. But obviously when the time comes towards like working on the charity and stuff, it will look like planning and getting ideas together, creating decorations, getting obviously sponsors with Mega Nursing and Care, communicating, promoting and other stuff like that. So it's quite full on in terms of a charity event.
No, I think it's great. I think it's really, really good. It's nice that you have like the first-hand experience with your sister and like working within the hospitals, and then you can just collate all of that knowledge and then, like you said, train it and make presentations and kind of spread the word about it.
Yeah.
I think it's so important. And in terms of the work within hospitals, as you mentioned, what does the LDA team do to support the patients?
So it would be things like coming to the ward if they need additional needs, like potentially input on how to navigate their care, how to support them. So with my sister, it'd be things on how to support her discharge to make sure she's not repetitively coming in. So then she's not coming in quite as often as it was, because sometimes it could be something where she just doesn't want to take a medication. If she doesn't, then she's going to have more frequent seizures, which means that she will come in a lot more frequently. So it's having their input on supporting on how to encourage to prevent her coming in, but it's also how to help the staff navigate things like if she refuses blood tests, how do you navigate that? There's quite a lot that they do. To say that I know every single one would be a lie, but from experience with my sister, it's a lot of like support for her and how to stop her coming into hospital and kind of navigating the wards and just being an advocate for her, really.
And it's understanding her as well, because naturally everyone does have off days. So not everyone wants to take the medication every single day, and keeping her out of hospital is also beneficial for her and the hospital as well. So it's, very, very important. How does the charity support that work?
So outside of the charity event, they are doing sensory appeals. So they're doing an appeal for sensory rooms for them to be built, I believe, around Northamptonshire. They have one at KGH currently for anyone with learning disability, autism. It could even be PTSD, so wider range, even like dementia and delirium. It's a space where they can go and relax away from the clinical environment, which again is really important in the sense of clinical environments are stressful for anyone, but with autism or learning disabilities, the added noise, the stress, the clinical lighting, because it's quite bright, it can really enhance the stress that they feel in terms of the environment that they're in. So when they can come away from a clinical environment and be able to just relax and collect themselves, it might make care that bit easier because it gives them a chance to de-stress. So I think it's not only the charity ball, it's also the other bits like the sensory room, the care packages, the information that all come together after the charity ball. Once the money's been raised, it's how we use it to support them in the care.
Yeah, these are individuals' everyday lives, and they do go into hospital all the time, and for anyone it is so clinical. It's the white walls, it's eerie, it's not nice, and for anyone that can really throw someone off. So having that within the hospitals for them to again have a safe space and go and relax and just de-stress, I think is really, really good. What kind of things does it fund that really make a difference day to day?
So again, it's like I know that there was looks at information booklets to get to the wards that are looking to be ordered to support with the patient's journey within the hospital, which means that it helps the staff gain the knowledge on how to navigate sometimes complex patients where their needs are a little bit more additional than others, because again, it's different for everyone. So in terms of my sister, it might help them navigate how to get her to get a blood test without being so restrictive on you only get one chance. Or it could be things like training, where they get extra funds to help train staff so that, again, they get more knowledge and training on how to navigate those situations. But also care packages like sensory toys. I know that was something that was discussed to get to help them de-stress when they're getting their bloods taken. They've got a nice sensory toy that they can kind of focus their attention on instead.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Is there a moment or experience that stayed with you? I know you mentioned your sister.
Yeah, a lot of it is around my sister, and there is a couple of moments where I've kind of been like, okay, I think there's definitely some knowledge, some discussions. I think it's as well like everyday life when you're talking to someone who has autism or learning disabilities, there's still a stigma sometimes around it. And I know one time when I have spoken to someone, they apologised for what they had said on the basis that they were autistic, and I said that you don't need to apologise. It's not something to apologise for. It's just who you are.
Of course.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, and definitely no one ever needs to apologise for that at all. And wow, that's really something. Something that made you think, no, what is something that made you think this is exactly why, like, what you do matters?
I think the safe environment of the charity, where people were able to come together and discuss, and like people who may have only recently got a diagnosis or know someone who's recently got a diagnosis again, they were able to have those conversations, because it's not just, to me, it's not just about the money. It's not how much money we get. It helps, but it's not the main point of what I'm doing. It's creating an environment where people feel safe to discuss, have those conversations. I mean, I didn't know about mega nursing and care until I'd come to the charity event, and I didn't know what support yous did until I kind of reached out to yous. So it's been really helpful in the sense of, even for me, it's knowing what else support there is for my sister potentially if she ever needed an extra hand here and there. It's then knowing what's in the community, not just within the hospital, but it's also knowing how many people do struggle or are impacted with it. One thing I like to do in the charity is ask if you know anyone or if yourself are impacted by learning disability or autism, and nearly everyone has their hand up, which makes you realise and puts into perspective that you're not alone. Some people don't talk about it because they don't know anyone, without realising that they actually probably do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I do speak quite passionately about this. So I think one thing that comes up so much nowadays, if that's social media, is that we hear the word autism, learning disability so much more often. I feel like it gets thrown around so much, but I'm not too sure people actually fully understand what those words actually mean. I feel like the spectrum is so wide and so vast, and obviously no two individuals are the same. And I think there's still a lot of misunderstanding around the word autism. From your perspective, what do you think people should understand better?
I think it's, of course, not everyone's the same. Not two individuals are going to be the same in terms of their experience, but also just because you have one or two one or two characteristics that may indicate autism, it might not be, it might just be who you are. And I think as well, if you're forgetful, it might just be because you're forgetful. It doesn't have to be something that it isn't. So I think it's just being mindful that you can self-diagnose. If you're looking to get a diagnosis, you need to look into the symptom. You need to look into the characteristics and how they correlate to present to your daughter. But just because you have one or two doesn't mean you're on the spectrum, and it's important to learn the differences and learn the impacts between the two, between knowing if you are or it's just who you are as a person.
Of course, yeah. Forgetfulness is one of the characteristics of autism, and like you said, and what we were speaking about earlier, doesn't necessarily mean you have autism. Like, naturally, everyone is forgetful. I think, like you said, it's knowing the difference between that as well.
Yeah.
And maybe not just labeling it, being like, oh, I'm very forgetful, I am this. No, I feel like it's so much deeper than that. And I feel like the knowledge needs to be like spoken about as well, and everyone needs to know about it instead of just throwing these words around.
Yeah.
And I also think getting a diagnosis for autism, some people kind of think it is a relief, and they feel like it is a relief because they've probably their whole life felt like they have been different, or they've maybe got like a strong interest or hyperfixation on like a hobby or something or an item. I feel like people around them might look at that as strange. And when they do get that diagnosis of autism, I feel like it's like a real sense of like relief and like a peace of mind for them. Because if people actually understood the neurodiversity better, those people like that wouldn't feel like judged, it would be celebrated. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, so I definitely see it. I think growing up there was a lot of I guess bullying when it came to me around my sister having learning disabilities. It was always then brought on to me in a way, and I think people just need to be understanding that just if you have a relative who has learning disabilities or autism, it doesn't mean that their relatives automatically have it. But then it's also understanding, okay, if someone has autism, it doesn't mean that you can judge them just because they like something that you don't. It could just be who they are. And if you're going to bully someone just on that, it's just not right in general. But again, with autism, it can, if you're quite high within the spectrum that we're talking about, it can make it harder to understand when they're being bullied. So they don't see the differences of someone just making a comment about them when actually someone's actually being horrible to them. And I think it's not right, because you should be the better person. You should know, if you don't know, basically learn, understand. I think we're in 2026. There's no part where you should be judging someone just because they like something. But I do understand completely how a diagnosis, when you've been struggling with it for your whole life, where it's impacted your day-to-day life, I understand how it can feel like a relief, where you think something was missing and now you finally get to learn who you are and understand who you are. But it's also not the be-all and end-all. If you like those things, you like those things. But I understand how it can be quite...
Yeah, exactly. And I think being known and understood by the people around you, so important. And on the flip side, it's completely okay if someone doesn't want to be labelled. So both of those are completely okay. How do you find a balance with this?
I think it's accepting people for who they are. Like I said, just because someone likes something or has a special interest, it doesn't mean they have autism. It just means that they really like it. But again, even if they have autism and they really like it, great. Show support if they really like something like, I don't know, Harry Potter or I guess Marvel or something. Great. If they want to talk to about it, be a listening ear. Take interest. If you really are truly someone's friend and you care about them, it wouldn't bother you no matter how much they talk about it or want to engage with it. It shouldn't bother you. But also, it doesn't have to have a label on it. You can just accept it as that's what they like. I'm going to listen. But then if they say, I'm autistic, this is my special interest, that's what you like, I'm open to hearing about it as well. It shouldn't be just because someone's autistic, you've changed your opinion. and you change how you treat them. You just treat them as they want to be treated.
Equally. Yeah, exactly. I've also read that women do mask autism very well. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, so the charity event's really helpful in the sense of I've been asked about masking a couple of times, and I've been able to say where someone may mask in front of others, they can come home and be quite angry towards people they know, and they'll kind of stress a bit more. They might come off as a bit more, they might shout a bit more and have a lesser temper. The temper might change in the sense of tolerance, but it's just because they feel safe to unmask, because you're just going to accept who they are and that they can't control it sometimes. But I do think women mask because I think there is a study or research that shows men are more likely to be diagnosed with autism, because the research within autism is more catered towards men, because women mask a lot more than men do, which I think shows how much of a difference there is and how much more research needs to go into women being diagnosed with autism as well.
Yeah, women usually get diagnosed a lot later on in life. So yeah, I definitely agree. So much more research does need to be put into the women's side as well. And yeah, just them masking it and getting diagnosed later on in life, and then kind of spotting that. And then also going back to masking probably outside. So if you were to leave your house, you kind of put on that front, but when you are home, those emotions do come out. Like you said, you're with your loved ones, you're so much more comfortable, you're in your home environment. So naturally you are going to be yourself, and that's when it is more shown and it does come out so much more. So, and because you're around your loved ones, they're never going to judge you at all. But you feel like once you kind of leave the house, you are being judged by so many people. So yeah, definitely. I've actually got some facts. I hope they're correct. It also feels like there's more diagnosis now. Like I said, that word is getting thrown around so much more in hospitals as well. So many more people are getting diagnosed. I was actually reading that around 700,000 people in the UK are actually autistic, which is 1 in 100 people. So if you were to think about schools, well, my school was quite small. I think there was only like 40 people in a year. But if you think about 3 years, that would be it would be like a few people diagnosed with autism. So you would definitely know someone with that. And around 1.3 billion people in England are living with a learning disability as well, which is a massive, massive number. So for people's knowledge to be so minimal about it, there's no excuse. So yeah, it does affect a huge number of people and families. How do you see that, and what does that mean for support services?
I think with social media, it means that more people are being reached and taught about autism, and they're learning about the characteristics, which means that if they've had this kind of thought where they could be autistic, and they've finally had the means to learn about autism and have kind of matched that to themselves and been able to get a diagnosis, it's great, because if they feel like they've been struggling and they finally are able to get the support that they need, is amazing. I think as well, it shows how many people do need the support, and obviously some of the characteristics, they might not have all of them, but it was still enough to create that impact, which means there's so much still to be learned, because not everyone can recognise autism, but it makes you aware that you could know someone at some point with autism, and it's just being open-minded to how can you support people who may present as autistic. And as well, like learning disabilities is really kind of broad in the sense of people could think things like dyslexia. some people may not see it as a learning disability, but it is. But because they may know quite a few people who have it, sometimes I've noticed that they don't see it as a learning disability. It's just something that they have. But I don't think they look into the deeper meaning of they need further support. So having things like statistics on how many people have it, and that it's kind of is a learning disability, it might kind of make them think, oh, do you know what, I don't know enough about learning disabilities or autism, maybe I should look into it. Maybe I should kind of make myself a bit more knowledgeable so those around me, I can support them however I need to.
Yeah. And being dyslexic, especially in like school and growing up, it's an extremely common thing. And I think being able to adapt the environment for that, even if it's like when you're friends at school or being the teacher, there's even the small things, if that's increasing the font size or like changing the colour on like their exam papers. I think the small things to make every day feel comfortable for them is so important. I also like how there's a few like celebrities like H. I believe he has a Down syndrome sister, and I like how like vocal and open he is about that, because more people should be, and I like that he spreads that awareness about that. So when someone with learning disability or autism comes into hospital, what are some of the challenges that they might face and then others might not realise? So I mentioned about the school. They could do those small things and increase in like the font size with dyslexia, etc. What about hospitals? What can they do?
I think it's definitely things like being aware of the lights, the environment, and how much more stress it can add. So the lights being too bright, maybe you could, if possible, maybe turn a light off, try and dim it down for them. As well as like menus and stuff when they're trying to fill it out, just maybe make the font size bigger. I know that they do really try and work on things like being inclusive in that sense, so it is quite good in that way, but just making sure that if someone with learning disabilities do need a bigger font size, it's able to be given. I think as well, just being aware of like the noises, if there's any way that you can reduce noise or support in that sense, it'd be great. What was the rest of the question? Sorry.
No, that was literally perfect. So yeah,
it's fine.
So at Megacare, we're so passionate as well to support individuals with learning disabilities and autism. And we've actually opened up a supported living in Kettering, which has been so exciting. It's just been great. I feel like I've learned so much, and we've created like a really nice safe environment and put some knowledgeable carers in there. And even like you said, and especially with hospitals and kind of anything to do with healthcare, the knowledge and like especially like legislations change all the time, so it's constant relearning and training and kind of building that up, because when you go into hospitals you kind of no two individuals is the same, so it's kind of making sure that you are catering for everyone, not just feeling like that training is just for one individual, being like this is a possibility, this could happen, and you kind of being ready for that. So yeah, I've really enjoyed the journey that we've done with the supported living. I think, yeah, I pop in there all the time, and it's been really great. So it's really nice to have these conversations and kind of spread the awareness, because people probably also don't know very much about ourselves as well, and how we can partner up. So yeah, it's really nice and powerful. So for anyone who has never heard about the charity, how would you explain it to them?
So Northamptonshire Health Charity is kind of an umbrella around Northamptonshire, raising money and supporting people that want to fundraise to get money within the charity pot for the hospitals, where you can then specifically fundraise for learning disability and autism. it helps raise the funds and gives them more access to the funds within the charity pot. But the charity also do like appeals, so things like the sensory room that I was talking about, they do appeals for where things are needed. So if there is a need for like the sensory room where patients would see real benefit of it, then they'll do appeals and they'll set a target amount of money that they need to create these areas and encourage and invite people to fundraise for them. So in conjunction with the charity ball, I'm doing a 5k run for the sensory room appeal to raise money for it, because I think it's a great collaboration in terms of what's already been done, and it just means more access for people to de-stress and have that minute away from a clinical environment where they can kind of gather their thoughts and calm down without being so high stress levels all the time.
There are so many charities out there. What would you say makes your charity different?
I think because it caters to so like Kettering General, Northampton General Hospital, to name a few, I think because it caters to those two hospitals, which are my local hospitals, I can kind of see the difference that they make every day, but it's also the different departments that they help support. So they'll open things like the sensory room, or it could be there used to be a charity ball for breast cancer, and they'll support with that and helping improve the services. I think as well with the appeals, it's not just relying on people to choose how they want to fundraise and having people just make their own initiative. The charity takes initiative themselves and they really listen to what's being discussed within the community in the hospital, and they kind of pick up on what's needed, and they make these appeals so that anyone who's kind of thinking, I want to fundraise, I'm not too sure what I want to do or how I can do it, the appeal's already there, so it makes it 100 times easier for anyone to get involved, where they can say, oh, this kind of fits in what I want to do, so I would like to get involved in that. So I think that's really good in the sense of you can create your own initiative and fundraise by yourself, or you can take part in an appeal that they've created as well.
And if someone is listening and thinking about donating, I know you mentioned about the sensory rooms and many more. Where does their money go? Because I feel like I mentioned, there's so many charities out there, and it's just spreading the awareness and knowing if I was to donate that money, what impact does it make? Where does it go?
So it goes into we'll call it a pot for Northamptonshire Health Charity, who support with the hospitals, so Kettering General, Northampton General. I'm sure there's more. I can't name all of them. If I could, I would. But I think it goes into kind of a pot, and you can fundraise for like departments. And if you kind of just want to fundraise for Northamptonshire Health Charity, it's completely fine. It just means that any department that needs it, so it doesn't have to be allocated specifically for a department, but any area that might need it can then dip into that pot and kind of get what they need. But then you can also do fundraising for specific things, and then the sensory appeals as well. They'll have a specific kind of section for that from the funds raised to then be able to build these sensory rooms. So it's managed by Northamptonshire Health Charities, but then when it's needed, departments can kind of come forth and say, oh, we need something, we need this, we need that, what can we do, how can we access it? And the team's really there to support them getting access and being able to get what they need in place within the departments.
Amazing. I feel like we just need to spread more awareness of it. I feel like people only know about these charities if something has an impact with them personally. If that's a new baby and they've been diagnosed with something, or a friend or a family member, but it's so much more than that. Like we mentioned earlier, it's if you're having a friend, or even just interacting day to day. If you're working in a cafe, you interact with so many customers and individuals, and I think it's spreading that awareness that like I keep saying, I'm so sorry, that everyone is so different. I think, yeah, just having that awareness is so much more important. Don't feel like you can't donate because it doesn't resonate with you, but yeah, you definitely do. I'd love to talk about the charity ball as well. I believe it's your 3rd year in a row doing it. And this is the LDA Charity Ball in aid of Northamptonshire Health Charity. What started the ball?
So it all started from, like I said, my sister coming in a bit more frequently to the hospital. So it kind of stemmed from there, seeing the knowledge that could have been improved on and the comfortability around how to navigate certain situations where my sister could have done with a bit more support. Obviously, I know staff are always trying their hardest, and they are always so good. But I always think, for me, there's always room for improvement no matter what it is. You can never be perfect. And I think there's always room to improve in any area. And with learning disabilities and how broad it can be and how complex, there are areas that you need to continue to develop your learning. So it stemmed from there. It was initially going to be one event, a one-off, but I had discussions with attendees from those who attended and how much it kind of impacted them coming here, and kind of the environment that it created and how well it was organised.
Well done.
I'm not boasting about myself, but they were kind of really impressed on how it was organised and how it kind of played out. And I think seeing how much support there was and how much a lot of people kind of felt like it was needed, in the sense of some people may not know there's a learning disability and autism department within Kettering General. So it gets the word out that there's support within the hospital for anyone that goes in for learning disabilities or autism. But it's also the fact that it's created a safe environment and the positivity that come from it. I then decided to do it for a 2nd year. And because of the positivity still, I kind of have decided that it was going to be a yearly thing.
Amazing, definitely. How's it grown from the first one? Was it like smaller because it was the first one, or?
I think it was bigger. I think with how things are sometimes, there's fluctuations between how many people come, but the outcome's always the same. It's a positive environment. I think from the first one, compared to last year's one, there's been a lot more conversations. People have kind of gotten used to who comes. There's regular people that have attended since the first year and have continued to attend, and they will be coming in the 3rd year. And I think it's been more open to conversations where you're able to discuss, hard topics where you feel like you need some more support, and you can kind of have an open conversation without worrying about other things and things like that, where it's just, how can I get the support for this? And it's people that are on the same level and on the same understanding that can support you through those. So it's kind of come from initially my sister being in hospital to then seeing the positive outcomes is where it's stemmed from.
Amazing. What are some of your favourite memories from the previous balls? I'm sure there is some.
This one, I tell everyone about this one every single time. So the first charity ball, brilliant. Everyone loved it. I went to go and get a drink. I proceeded to come in and there was an inflatable unicorn and another inflatable animal that randomly joined us. And other people, after the dinner had finished, other people within the hotel were asking if they could come and join in, and they'd donate some money. So it was kind of like people had joined in, but then other people were like, oh my God, I didn't know this was happening. I'd really like to get involved. So they were joining in and giving money to be able to join in as well. But we ended up with inflatable unicorns. And
wow.
Don't know where that came from, but it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that sounds great. How much have you raised so far?
We've calculated it to be, don't quote me on this, but I think it's over £2,000 or just over £2,000 for the charity.
Is that for this? What time is that spread over?
So that's over the 2 charity balls. So the 2 charity balls have raised just over £2,000.
That is so incredible. So huge, well done. Can you share a story of how the funding made a difference? So with those funds.
Yeah, so I know there is plans for raising money for something that'll get some more training in, but the last update that we had was regarding like those brochures, kind of leaflets that we were discussing. They were looking to order some of them in and get them around to the wards and departments, so then patient care can be supported and getting them kind of done professionally and available to all of the wards. That was kind of what I'd heard from last year. I will be getting another update hopefully soon, but I know that these information booklets are to be ordered and get to the wards. So then when a patient does come in with learning disabilities or autism, there's more information to be accessed like there and then, rather than kind of calling the LDA department and requesting support and potentially waiting for someone, because you don't know how many people with learning disabilities or autism are in the hospital at once. But having the information there and then, easily accessible, just means that supported care can be given a lot more quicker than potentially what was previous. It just means that staff can increase their knowledge and awareness of how to support those within the care.
And giving that to someone who is probably in hospital as well, for them to take home, and if that's for them or the family member, to have a read, and then that can spark conversation, and then if they are wanting to seek further information, they can then do so, which is really good. One thing that I loved, I know we mentioned it, but I like how accessible the events have been. I think especially with people and individuals with learning disabilities and autism, being in a busy room can sometimes feel so overwhelming for them. It can be loud, it can just like unfamiliar faces, it's so overwhelming. But you really created like a really nice, safe, supported and non-judgmental environment kind of at all of the events, and which is lovely. Was that important to you when you planned these balls?
Yeah, I think a lot of the times people think charity event and they potentially think money, which, yes, I agree, we want to raise the money, but I think what was also important was having an event that was for the community that it impacted. I think it's great if you raise money. It's brilliant if you can get money in to support people in hospital, whether it's £100 or £10,000, it doesn't matter, it's all going to the same cause. But I think seeing the positivity from the events has just really made me aware of how much more important it was that A, we have the funds for the department, but also B, to create that environment where people can branch out and look for further support. So we have different ways on how to manage and navigate learning disabilities or autism, but also how many people that they can turn to when they're having a hard time, or if they just need some community, even groups like community groups where they can go and spend the day, allowing them to de-stress from daily life, and as well as the families. I think that was really important, but also because it's for the community, I'd never want to shut it off. It's not something that I think is fair. Because if I'm doing something for someone, it should include those who are going to see the benefits of it.
Yeah, definitely. There's some really good, especially in Northamptonshire, there's some really good day centres. There's Teamwork that covers, I believe, Wellingborough, Kettering and Corby. That's an incredible day centre, and gives those individuals a time to escape their lives and learn and do some fun things as well. And like you mentioned, it also gives the family a break as well, and kind of reset, because it's a busy life, busy world. I have to say, I do love hosting events, especially ones that have like a real good purpose behind it. And there's something so like rewarding about seeing something like an event come together and make a difference. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, so the first one was kind of like pastels vibes. Now we're going for Las Vegas, and I'm so excited for it. Ball gowns, everything. I think as well, dressing up. Everyone likes to dress up when they've got a chance. But I think as well, it's seeing like it's noticing the details. When you see other people noticing the details, even if it's small or big, it's the acknowledgement of like the effort and how important it is. It's not a case of I've hosted the ball, hooray to me. It's a case of I've hosted an event that's catered to people that really want to attend. I think it's about all of it coming together. So like the food being great, because no one wants a bad meal when they've paid for it. But I also think it's the entertainment. You know, you sat down for an hour, 2 hours, having a meal. What are you going to do after? It's about having the balance between being interactive, having a moment where you can sit, chat, but then also having a party so you can celebrate everything's been done. So it feels great to be able to host the ball, but I think it's not for me, it's for everyone else. Everyone else is like the limelight, if you say, rather than the host. It's about them rather than the host itself.
Of course. I think what you're doing is incredible. I'm very excited to go to the event. It's like you mentioned, it's not just that big, doesn't have to be a ball. Like you can do your 5K runs, and I'm sure people do bake sales to raise the money, and it's kind of everyday things that people can get involved in as well, and make an impact that way. When you step back and look at everything you're doing, I do think it is great. So hat off. How does this kind of work and events like the Charity Ball help the healthcare make it more equal with people with LDA?
I think it raises awareness of how many people are impacted in it. So obviously it's open to everyone to attend. So if staff from the hospitals attend, it makes them aware of how many people within the community are impacted by learning disabilities or autism. So it gives them that awareness of how mindful to be. Not that I'm saying that they're not mindful of it, but I think it just puts it into a visual perspective. I think it's sometimes hard with statistics on, oh, what does that look like? But then when you visually see a room full of 90 people all putting their hands up to say that they have some involvement within learning disabilities or autism, whether it's themselves or their friends or their family, it really puts it into perspective of how many people that actually is. And to be in a room full of 90 people with all their hands up, it really takes you back sometimes. You're kind of stood there and it's like all of these people could be within the hospital all at one time. And obviously with how broad and complex autism or learning disabilities can be, it's not always kind of noticeable. So it kind of makes you a bit more prepared, I guess it could be the word for it, or just makes you a bit more mindful on how to approach things if you're noticing certain characteristics, and kind of puts that perspective into place.
Yeah, definitely. What do you still think needs to change?
Stigma. I think stigma is a really big thing. Like we were talking about earlier, it's the people that maybe when they were younger they had special interests and they got bullied for it, or they were made to feel weird or different to other people. I think it's, and obviously with everyone, there's sometimes you hear, oh, it's just people who weren't raised right or they weren't told off properly. And I'm not sure if anyone has heard it, but I know I've heard it a couple of times around people who I've grown up with autism and learning disabilities, and that is a common thing that I have personally heard. Not everyone hears it, but it's learning that no matter how you're brought up, if you're autistic or learning disabilities, it's not going to change no matter how you go through life. It's just how you're born, it's who you are. And I think being mindful of that and trying to reduce stigma and increase education and knowledge is so important, so we can eradicate this bullying or segregation that some people may find that they experience.
Needs to go. The whole complete bullying thing just needs to completely be wiped out. Sadly, I don't think it ever will, but I think, yeah, especially people nowadays, they just like to cling on things and anything, and they'll throw anything in it. And like you mentioned, they'll blame it on the parents, and it genuinely has nothing to do with the parents. They're still learning to cope with a new environment that they're in as well. So everyone's going through something. I think people just need to not be so involved in other people's business, and I think that they need to just be more educated. Wow, that was passionate. What do you hope for the charity in the future? What's your goals?
I would love to be able to do it in joint. I think I've said this a couple of times when I'm discussing it. Hopefully in a year or 2 years' time, the charity event will sell out for 2 years running, and that's when I was going to look at doing it for Northampton General as well, because I believe they have a learning disability autism department within Northampton. So if we can kind of make it bigger, so that more of the community can have an event that they can access where it's friendly and it's just a night where it celebrates them. I think that's really important, but also not everyone lives in Kettering, not everyone lives in Corby. Some people live in Wellingborough, so your hospital access will be different, and it'll be nice if you can branch out and get different communities from Northampton and the surrounding areas. It then shows even more support for those within the community and what other support there is depending on where they live. I think it just opens so much doors if we were able to expand it even further.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're covering Northamptonshire at the moment. And like you said, not everyone is from the Northamptonshire area. So covering West Northants would be incredible. That it spreads the word so much more and accessing it more for everyone if they do live in Northampton or Wellingborough and everything. So I think you can do it.
Hopefully.
No, you can. Did you want to speak about your event? When is it? What can people expect? How do they buy tickets? And
yeah, so it's on the 6th of June. It starts at 6 p.m. Tickets are available on Eventbrite, where they can buy a table of 10 or just one ticket. The process of ordering your food's really easy. Again, like I said, it's very inclusive. So if you have needs for, the kitchen that you need support with, then they're more than willing to support with that. There's also a section where you can say who you're sitting with. So even if you don't fill a full table, if you just pop it in there, we can make sure that you're sat with the people that you're coming with. So you don't need to buy a table of 10. You could buy you could buy 2 tickets or 3 tickets, and we'll make sure you sat with them, which means you'll be introduced to new people as well. So if you've got 2 tickets, you've got 8 people to be introduced to. So it's a nice way to socialise. Again, it's Las Vegas themed, so I've got a couple of ideas in the running of exciting things that we can do, and the decorations are going to be
incredible.
Really good, if I do say so myself. But yeah.
Amazing. So 6th of June at the Kettering Park Hotel. So how much are tickets?
£55 per person. I did do a slight sale, which I'll hopefully bring on to the next one, where the first tickets are £45 per person, and the first 30 will be at a discounted rate, and then the rest will be at the normal price. So hopefully I can carry that on next year as well.
Yeah, great. And so £55, that can get them a 3-course meal, entertainment, they can dress up for the night, and then socialise with people, and I think that's great. That's so worth the price.
100%. And the hotel are so generous. So if you're wanting to stay the night, the first 10 rooms are at a discounted rate as well, if you say that you're attending the event too.
Very, very nice. And they have a spa there as well.
They do. They definitely do.
So just before we finish, if you know me, I love a quote. Whenever it's my birthday, I always go around the office and like, what advice or quote would you give me or anyone else? I love that. I like feed off of them. So I do have to ask, what is one quote that you live by?
Oh, you've really asked me now.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
go first.
Okay, I put myself on the spot now. I would say nothing good is found in your comfort zone. Expand that and push yourself, because you are more than capable of doing it. And then comparison is a thief of joy, so never compare yourself. You're in your own lane, and you just do you, basically.
Oh, that was a good one. Quotes, it's like all of them have went from my head. We might need an hour just for me to think about a quote.
Just any quote, or anything, or any advice. Any advice that you can give anyone.
Probably better advice.
Yeah, advice. What would you give me or anyone? Any advice?
Walk around with an open mind. I think so many people are judgmental.
Agreed.
Or, well, not so many people are judgmental, but I think so many people can be a lot more open-minded than they are. Sometimes you don't realise that you're not being as open-minded as you could be, so being mindful that if someone new comes into your life, then accept them for who they are. Obviously, I can't say on whether their morals match yours, and if you're in an uncomfortable situation, you can remove yourself, but always be respectful of others. I think I live by that every day, is just being aware and respectful and mindful of people and how different people are. We can always be open-minded and accepting of other people where we can be and how much we can be.
Yeah, don't dim someone's light. Yeah, that's such a lovely way to end. So thank you so much for sharing kind of everything that you're doing and your story, especially around the LDA charity and your family. So thank you for opening up. It's been really nice and special to talk about it. So yeah, thank you all so much for listening. Remember to follow us on all of the social medias. We do have everything. And if you are interested in going to the LDA charity, the link will be below, and it's on the 6th of June. Thank you.